Journalists are the most important asset to any newsroom, so looking after them is no different to looking after the most important piece of kit, the most important piece of technology. Journalists are the kind of nuts and bolts, the heart of the newsroom. So it's really important that we ensure that they're okay and that we look after them and that we don't ask too much of them.
Journalists are not taking care of ourselves, or if we're not given the space to take care of ourselves, then we're not going to be able to do the jobs that we need to do at the level that we need to do it. And we have communities that depend on us. There are people that depend on us for their information needs, for context, for decision making. And if we as the people who are gathering and providing that information are not operating at a level where we can do that well, then it's not just us that are personally suffering, but the newsroom as a whole.
It has a ripple effect. And if your team is going through burnout, you need to be aware of that so that you can provide the support that is necessary.
You're not going to be able to support your colleagues if you're not first looking after yourself. Thinking about that metaphor, it's about putting on the oxygen mask before you go and support the person next to you. So again, that means making sure that you are setting appropriate work boundaries, you're giving yourself protective time for breaks, you're scheduling your time appropriately to really think about the tasks that you've got to achieve, what those deadlines are, and giving yourself the space and headspace to really complete that work to the best of your abilities.
If you're suffering from burnout, it's really important to acknowledge that and be able to have that degree of self-compassion, because how are you going to help those whom you're managing if you're not helping yourself?
As a leader of a newsroom, of course, it's a very stressful job, making big decisions, a lot of people's welfare on your shoulders. I think it's really important that you can look after yourself in the most basic sense, have a sense of yourself, your moods, when you may be not at your best, and recognise that that might be the symptom of something.
So I focus a lot with managers and myself in trying to say, I will answer that thing tomorrow. I will deal with that tomorrow, because actually most of the things that we're dealing with can wait.
I'm not a particularly good driver. I used to find the stress of the traffic incredibly difficult. I was in a terrible state. I was in a real mess. And at one point, the best thing I ever did was I sold my car. I started going home on the tube, and I sit on the tube and I watch rubbish TV on my iPad, or I read a book, and I try and do something that's unconnected with work. And it's a really good barrier.
I learned that I needed to switch off from the news and not make the news my entire identity and my entire life. Meditating and just physical movement. For me, that's yoga. For somebody else, that might be a walk. It might be going to the gym. It might be stretching. But when you are stressed out, that stress lives inside of your body and it needs to be released somehow. And so exercise and any form of movement is helpful in releasing the stress, but also in releasing endorphins.